Okay. All right. So today, first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go over some of those sites that you guys submitted. We'll talk about some of those. There are some pretty cool sites that you guys submitted. So we'll go over those, and then I'm going to go through some slides covering some information in Chapter 1, and that will kind of cover it for today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. All right. Okay, so let me start off with one of the most popular ones here. There's a lot of people that had YouTube listed as one of their favorite sites. So I think there was probably like 3 or 4 that had YouTube. So it's kind of interesting, you know, seeing the progression and evolution of YouTube throughout the years and how it's changed. You know, it's kind of crazy because you can, you know, you want to know how to do something, or you have a question about something, you know, just go to YouTube and pretty much you can find anything there. So, but as far as like web page, you know, the interface is done really well. You know, it's mobile friendly, it's responsive. So like if I shrink down here, everything responds and reconfigures. So you'll see, and this is something that we'll cover in class, how to do this. But like you see here, we got the little, I call it the hamburger menu. Usually those 3 little lines there up in the top left corner. Don't know why I'm getting Donald Trump ads on here. I guess it's political election time, so probably going to see a lot of that kind of junk on YouTube and social media. So anyway, yeah, YouTube, really cool site. Anybody out there that submitted YouTube? Anything else you want to add? If so, go ahead and feel free to unmute yourself and talk. Okay. All right. Let's jump. I'm going to close that one now. Let's just go through the list here. Okay. This was an interesting one. Is it? I think Nicholas had this. Nick, do you go by Nicholas or Nick?
I go by Nick.
Nick. Okay. All right. Tell us about your site here. I thought it was a pretty interesting site.
I like it because it's really simple, and it has all kinds of, you have stuff like $6 pads of paper to multi-million-dollar yachts on there to just look at.
Yeah.
Stuff that's like.
That was cool.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda. So, yeah, I was looking through some of these.
Islands.
Some of them are hilarious. The things that are on here. So yeah, I've never come across this site before, but I'll have to bookmark it.
That's good for just mindlessly scrolling.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. All right. All right. Who had Spotify?
I did.
Okay. What do you like about the way the Spotify does their site?
I really like how they use their graphics and color schemes to really grab as an attention grabber, and like how well it can be used on mobile and on desktop or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's that's one of the big things right now, as far as web design and web development, is you almost design for the mobile first. 10, 15 years ago, when I was designing web pages, it was always, you're designing for something that's going to be on a monitor, a desktop or a laptop. And now really it's kind of reversed. You think about how is this going to look on a smartphone on the mobile platform first, and then and with some of the stuff and the ways that we do things, it makes it really easy to make what we call responsive web pages that respond to any screen size. So yeah, and the colors that they use, nice color palette. So yeah, good site. Okay, yeah, this is a pretty cool one. That Molly had this. Oh, actually, I think she's coming back into the room right now, into the Zoom. Okay, I think it was Molly that had this site. Are you here, Molly?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. My computer's like glitching out, so.
That's okay. Yeah.
I really didn't have like a favorite website. I don't know. I like getting on YouTube and stuff, but I just looked for like interesting websites, and so I thought it was cool that like you could scroll through those. And
yeah, it's kind of fun how so right now I'm just scrolling on my trackpad on my laptop up and down, and it's kind of progressing through. So this is something you're kind of seeing more and more of on websites now, is this kind of really long scrolling site. This one's kind of a more artistic take on it, which is kind of cool with the illustrations and stuff they have. But yeah, it's kind of a fun site. So a lot of these types of sites I call it a cake layer. We call it cake layer site, just because it's like built layers upon layers, kind of a vertical access. So yeah, cool. All right. And okay, who had this one?
I did.
Okay. All right.
So,
Cormac, tell us about this site.
so it doesn't. I have it set to this particular shoe just because it has a good example. But they sell more than shoes. They sell like watches and stuff. But it's ran similar to like an actual stock market. So if you like right there, so they have that little chart right there. They have it sort of like as an actual stock market like chart. And to my knowledge, they have it set so it like automatically updates depending on the price of whatever item it is, to my knowledge at least.
Huh. Yeah, that's kind of a cool idea. Yeah, that's kind of a neat site. This is another one that I bookmarked because I hadn't come across this one. Cool.
And yep, that's about all.
All right, sweet. Yeah, nicely done. I mean, the interface is really done really well. They got nice interactive, like here where you can kind of scroll around to look at the shoe in detail. So yeah, very cool. All right, Qdoba. Is it Matthew had this one, maybe? Matt?
Yeah, I had that one.
Okay, tell us about this.
Well, what it really amounts to is you asked us to submit our favorite website, and I'm fat. So, so there you go.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, I love Qdoba as well. I'm always torn between Qdoba and Chipotle. I mean, I like them both. So,
It's not even a question. Qdoba, hands down. Chipotle's only upper hand is they use sweet corn in their roasted chili corn salsa.
yeah,
It's the only upside to Chipotle.
yeah, I do like you get the free guac and stuff at Qdoba. Yeah, it's and I actually use their app quite a bit to order. Their app is done really nice. The site's definitely made for mobile, just so you know, so you can order easily. So yeah. Again, you're seeing that same thing where a lot of these sites are built for mobile first, really. Okay. All right, got some D&D action going on here. Forget who had this one. Henry?
That would be me. Yeah.
Okay.
That audio is coming through, right?
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's a really easy to navigate site where you can purchase online materials, easy character creation, content sharing is really easy. There's plenty of forums on there that you can go and search around, whether you're looking for a game to run or a game to play, stuff like that. And it's really easy to homebrew your own content, which for those of you who don't know just means make something original.
Mm-hmm.
Or adapt something that's already there. It's just a very easy and kind of fun site to use just to go through.
Cool. Yeah, I really like their layout and their approach. Nice grid system. Everything's nice and clean, easy to find information. So,
and with it being official, there's always new updates and forum posts.
Mm-hmm. Take a look at the menu here. It's kind of nice. So, yeah, it's a really well put together site. Okay. Okay, we got the Supreme site here.
Yeah, this was me. Can you hear it?
Okay. Yep.
So I really liked how it's not even the brand, it's just how brutal and how like simplistic this website is what I really liked about it. From like the font to like just the navigation of it. It was just so simple and just like brutal, and it's like standing. Like you talked about how like websites are now built around mobile. You can kind of see how this one takes the complete opposite step of that. It's just like you need a mouse here.
Right. Yep. Especially with like the little hover.
Yep. But I really like how that's displayed.
Yep. Yeah, it's another thing we'll get into talking about is, designing for your audience. So this is definitely a more hip, younger audience that's going to use this site. I'm not going to have a lot of grandpa and grandmas on here looking for stuff. So you got like smaller font sizes, things like that. So yeah, cool. All right. Samsung site.
Yeah, I think that was me.
Okay.
I just like the Samsung site. I've always been a super huge advocate for Samsung products. I just love their like simplicity and complexity, kind of like it's very simple, but when you like click on something, it'll tell you everything and anything about that product. And kind of like the Gucci website, depending on what product you click, it'll do that like scrolling weird, like cake layers, what you said. I just thought it was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, let me see if I can maybe find what you're talking about there. I'm guessing this kind of does that.
Yeah.
Yep. So as you kind of scroll, some of the stuff kind of animates in. Sorry, my internet connection's there's kind of doing a little bit of it. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen more and more sites do this. It's kind of an interesting, it's a way to keep people's attention too, as they kind of scroll through. You grab their attention and present the information. Okay, NASA site.
I do. My name is Asil Bakraba.
Okay.
And I like this website, not because it's related to space. I like reading articles from it. Actually, we don't see a lot of government website that is easy to search in. As we can see, there is 2 buttons flying above, mission, gallery. It's easy to find. It's like it's been categorized, where we can see mission, gallery, and if we want to search for moon, we can find the moon button, the Mars, the mission, slides, everything. So I would say like it's easy to get, easy to find everything you want.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, this is what I like most of it.
very cool. Yeah, I was reading some, it's kind of interesting. NASA has some really cool brand guidelines. And so, you know, I definitely agree as far as a government site, this is definitely one of the better sites. So yeah, very cool. Okay. Desmos.
Yeah, that was me.
Okay.
I chose this website. I don't know. You can make some of the coolest artwork just using a free graphing calculator. So,
Okay.
it's math. So,
Cool.
I always need that, and it's free. And the website's it's pretty cool. If you just scroll through, find a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's put together again nice. So you'll see this a lot where you have kind of what we call our horizontal navigation here at the top on a lot of sites. And then as you go to like a mobile version, you'll notice that the navigation changes a little bit. Everything goes into like a 1 or 2 column setup there. So, yep. All right, okay, Wattpad.
Yes, that would be mine.
Okay.
Wattpad just is one of, honestly, my go-to reading sites, and I just love the fact that not only is it a site that I think it started out as, but it also works well as an app and can even go offline.
Okay.
So
cool. Yeah, it's it's an interesting concept that they have here as far as you know, writing and storytelling and things like that. It's pretty intuitive the way this site works. So, and it looks nice too. I love the color palette that they chose. You know, with the black and white and orange. Not too much going on, but definitely grabs your attention. All right, final one here. Again, another one of those scrolling sites. So, Joya, I think was this yours?
Yeah, so pretty much the same as Molly. I didn't have like a specific favorite website or anything, so I just searched Google. And this one first caught my attention because the default language is French, and I don't know French, so I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
And I just like how animated it is, and I think it's cool.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's definitely it's so cool the way they do some of the animations on these sites. So that's all done through like JavaScript and you guys will learn about CSS, so cascading style sheets, and then JavaScript to add in some of that animation. So, yeah. All right. Well, you guys had a lot of really cool sites, so thanks for sharing those. Okay.
Can I ask maybe what that site is? Like, it looked like it had a lot of stuff on it.
The last one we.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
it's
Joya.
just for like a restaurant. I don't really know. That's what I figured it was for. But I mean, it was in French, so don't think we could go there.
Yeah, from when I looked at it, it looked like it was like a little cafe cantina. Might be a chain or something in France. So. All right. So let's go ahead and I'm going to pull up presentation for today. All right, move this out of the way. Okay. So again, just a reminder for the textbook. If you don't have the textbook ordered, make sure you get that ordered right away because we'll this week we'll be reviewing. You'll have a quiz that'll be due by Sunday. And then next week is when we get into we start coding and going through the practice coding assignments and getting into the case study assignments. So that's what the book looks like, 9th edition. So make sure you get the 9th edition. It just came out last year. So there might be some used ones out there available. And again, if you want to get the digital version, that's fine as well. Either way, as long as it's the 9th edition, you should be good. All right, grab a drink here. Okay. PowerPoint. Okay, so we're going to talk about here, basically this chapter is just kind of an overview of the internet and web, networking, how websites operate, and it's kind of just an overview of all that. We talk about accessibility. Accessibility is something that will come up quite a bit throughout the semester, just because we always want to make sure our websites are designed in an accessible manner for anybody to use. So talk about HTML, kind of the history of that and where that came from. And so something that some people might not, they might think the web and the internet are kind of this one and the same. But if we define the internet, it's really the network, the network of computer networks that span across the globe. So it's just that interconnected network. And the internet really kind of started to become commercially viable and accessible to the everyday person back in the 90s. So when I was in college, back in like the mid 90s, late 90s, as kind of when there was that real explosion of web pages that you saw kind of in the late 90s, early 2000s. And, everybody, all the companies started getting on the web. And you go back to some of the first web browsers. Mosaic was the first graphical based web browser that was developed at the National Computing Science Academy. And then in the 90s, personal computers started to become more affordable for people and more widely available. And it's so crazy growing up, when we had like dial-up internet where you had to connect a modem and use your telephone line to connect versus now when everything's, at least in the United States, most of the United States, we have this broadband fast connection, even through cell phone networks. The connection is usually pretty fast. So, and then, so like I said, the difference between the internet and the World Wide Web, the web is more kind of that graphical user interface to the information that's stored on computers, servers that use the internet to connect with each other. Okay. All right, so some of the internet standards, I'll just briefly go through these. The IETF, Internet Engineering Task Force, it's kind of the main body that develops new internet protocol standards. RFC, Request for Comments, that's a formal document that from the IETF that they use to review any kind of changes that might need to occur. So it's kind of weird to think about that there's these groups that help guide and set standards for the internet, because I mean the internet and the web, it's such a huge entity. But there are these different organizations that kind of help set some standards, because really if we didn't have any kind of standards or coordination, it would just be kind of a mess. And you kind of saw that, you know, I even kind of experienced that with some of my first jobs working as a web designer. You know, there was no accessibility standards, and everything was kind of all over the place. So kind of interesting. ICANN, this is another group, and they're a nonprofit organization, and kind of what their main function is to coordinate like IP addresses, domain names. So like if you wanted to register a new domain, you know, if you're developing a new website, the ICANN is kind of the organization that helps coordinate all that, make sure, you know, that everything is done fairly. Okay, they set those protocols. All right, so growth of the internet is kind of interesting. 95% of the global population that was using it was about, you know, 0.5%, versus this latest information here from 2015, almost to 50% of the global population that's using the internet. 2020, that number's probably even gone up some more. So, but you know, you think about it, even if, you know, we're at 50% right now, that's only half the population on the globe that's using the internet. So we're not quite there yet. I know there's a lot of organizations and companies that are working with some of the third world developing countries to get internet to those places and get people connected. All right, intranet versus extranet. So you might have heard these before. Intranet, it's usually a private network within an organization. So like K-State, we do have some intranet networks set up that usually like just our business office or certain departments within the organization use. So we can share resources, different information with coworkers. So those are private. They're usually not accessible to the public. They're usually firewalled off. Excuse me. And then the extranet is usually a private network that it kind of, part of it works with external partners. So they'll open up some of that network to third parties. Again, usually not open to the entire public. When we talk about the web standards, there's a W3C, which is the World Wide Web Consortium. They usually develop recommendations and updated technologies for the web. There's also the Web Accessibility Initiative. So that was a big part to make sure that the web is accessible for everybody. So these are some links that you should probably go and take a look at this week. You can pull up, I have the slides available on Canvas, so you can get to those links from there. But they just set up some guidelines for accessibility, because really we want to make sure that, especially with sites like nonprofit organizations, government sites, education sites like K-State, we want to make accommodations for all individuals that even might have some visual or hearing or physical disabilities, to make those sites accessible for everybody. Part of this is because of goes back to the Americans with Disabilities Act and Section 508, which requires government agencies to give those individuals equal and fair access. All right. Universal design. Again, this is something we kind of talk about with web development and web design. You want them to be usable by anybody. You know, all people to be able to use a site. So, like for example, K-State, we want you know, anybody to come to that site to be able to find the information that they want and need without having to go through too much trouble finding it. Okay, so this is something that will come up quite a bit, maybe even in other classes that you have, you know, like some of your writing classes, when you're looking for references and resources, is because there's just so much stuff out there nowadays that you really want reliable information. So is the organization credible? How recent is the information? Are there links to additional resources? You know, usually try to want to avoid Wikipedia for academic references and resources. All right, so checkpoint. So let's talk about some of the technology here for a little bit. A network is usually 2 or more computers that we have connected, really for the purpose of communicating and sharing resources and data. Okay, so there's a little illustration that kind of shows that. I apologize, my voice is starting to go out. I need to get back into the the swing of lecturing here, so had all summer off. But anyway, yeah, that illustration kind of explains how that works, where you have a server, then you have your computer workstation. So like they will be plugged into a switch, which then connects to the server and routers, and then those then connect to the internet. So like I said, the internet, just that the global connection of all these networks. You've probably heard of
Do
a
we
LAN.
need to concern ourselves with like, I have a quick question. Do we need to concern ourselves with like the router and the ISP relation, or like beyond the router, or no?
Not really for this class.
Okay.
We do have like some networking classes where they'll go into a lot more detail on that stuff. Yeah, so this class is just a real, I mean, broad overview of what we're talking about here.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, a LAN, that stands for local area network. Usually like when you have a bunch of computers that are connected together within a single building or a group of buildings complex. A WAN as wide area network. Okay, that's usually when you have one company or organization that has computers connected throughout, you know, a region or you know, different geographical locations. So this is kind of interesting. The map of the internet backbone. Let me see if I can get that link to come up here. Yeah, let's take a look at one of these maybe. So you can find these on Google. They just have the it's kind of interesting how the networks are connected throughout the world, and just kind of the major hubs of information. So you can see on the East Coast here in the United States, where a lot of that information is then being connected into Europe and other areas. So yeah, just if you've never looked at one of those, it's kind of interesting. Client server. Okay, so when we talk about client and server, clients is usually like the like an end user consumer that's requesting some sort of information or data, and then the server is the side that fulfills that request and then transfers the results back to the client over the internet through a network. So again, client server model, pretty simple there. Client requests server responds and sends that back. Okay, so it's just that back and forth process. Yeah, so web client usually kind of a little more detail explaining what's going on, requesting web pages using HTTP. Into that here in a second. So all that information, all that data is usually, it's then stored on the server. So the client computer doesn't have to keep all of that. And then that way the server can send all that out to, you know, hundreds, thousands, millions of people, millions of clients. All right. I'll talk through just real briefly, email, multi-purpose internet mail extension. So if you ever see that terminology, I call it MIME. It's just a set of rules that we use for email. Internet protocols. There are a lot of different protocols that we use to communicate over the internet. So we need a lot of different types of protocols that have specific functions attached to them. Okay, so we'll have like different protocols for email, different protocols for, you know, various types of networks and websites. So one that you'll see quite a bit is FTP. That just stands for File Transfer Protocol. This is what we use when we're transferring, you know, like updated new web pages, web files to a server. We'll use this protocol to upload and download files from servers. So as a web designer and web developer, this is something that you'll use quite a bit. Email. When we're sending email, we're using an SMTP, so Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. So you might see that sometimes when you're setting up an email client. When you receive email, usually what we use most of the time now is the IMAP, which is different than the POP, just because IMAP, we can have it connected to multiple clients for the same account, and it can simultaneously receive email to like your phone or your laptop or your desktop at the same time, versus a POP, which you can only have one connection at a time. All right, so HTTP, everybody has seen this on web pages. Definition, what it stands for is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And so this is just those set of rules that we use for exchanging files on the web, you know, text, graphic, image files, sound, video, all those different file types. What web browsers are doing is they're sending these HTTP requests to the server to load the content for these web pages. And so the web servers are then finding those like HTML, JPEG files, whatever it might be, and sending it back to the browser using this protocol. Okay, so this is just the protocol that we're using for the web. TCP/IP, these are, again, the protocols that we use to communicate, that we're using as kind of the official communication for the internet. And you've probably heard of like IP addresses. So this is the IP, stands for Internet Protocol. It's just a set of rules on how that data is sent between computers that are connected. So like an IP address, these are just specific addresses. Usually they contain a set of 4 groups of numbers. Okay, so this is where it's just basically so it knows where to send the information to and from. Okay, so for example, this one here is the IP address for Google. Okay, so you know, your home computer setup, you have an IP address. like in an office, usually each computer setup has a specific IP address tied to it. A domain name, right? So these are the, this is basically how we're locating organizations and companies, different entities on the internet. Like I said, when you try to register a new domain name, you go through that ICANN process to get your domain name set up. It usually, what it does is it takes that IP address and it connects it to a text-based domain. All right, so like this example here for google.com, it's connecting that domain name to that IP address. And then a URL, Uniform Resource Locator, it's another common thing that you'll come across. That is the little illustration down here kind of shows you how that URL is organized. We have our HTTP protocol, our subdomain or web server name, so www. And then domain name here, webfoundations.net. And then when we get down into the next area, we have usually folder or we call them directories, and then the specific file name. So top level domain, these are like your .coms, .org, .edu, .net. Gosh, there's they've been adding to these. There's really all kinds of top level domain names now that you can get for your websites. So most common though, you know, .com, .org, those ones, .net, usually the most prevalent out there. And then you also have country codes as well. So sometimes you'll come across a .uk or, you know, that's United Kingdom. So these are usually intended to indicate where that website's coming from. So what country. Okay, so this one here just kind of illustrates how that domain name system works, how it associates with IP addresses. All right. Okay, next section, let's talk a little bit about markup languages. So this is what you're going to be working with for the most part in this class, HTML, hypertext markup language. So that's a set of markup symbols, codes that are placed into a file that we can use to display information on a web browser. Okay. XML, you might see this. XML is kind of a text-based language, really intended more for separating data from HTML. XML is a lot of times you'll have XML files that contain just a ton of data inside of them. Think of like Excel spreadsheet type of thing where you have a lot of data. XHTML, that was something that was developed a while ago. When it says HTML 4.0, that was kind of the previous version of HTML that we use. Right now, we're using HTML5, and we're actually going through different phases of HTML5 right now. Reason being is because we're always updating to provide better accessibility, better standards. So, you know, having like video and audio capabilities built right into, you know, our HTML files that we're developing and producing, so that that type of information is available for everybody without having to use plugins and different third-party you know, applications. We want to make all of that accessible right there within HTML. So getting close to the end here, you know, how do we use internet? E-commerce is a huge part of internet. you know, just accessing information, social networking. You know, it's been interesting. I'm kind of in a unique position where I've gotten to experience how the internet has and the World Wide Web has changed over the years. And it's really, close that, I'll get back to just my camera. It's kind of interesting because before it was a lot of companies and organizations, you know, just sending data to the consumers, to the audience. And now it's much more of a kind of a shared experience where users are uploading information, uploading data, and it's kind of more of a back and forth environment, which is kind of interesting. So, you know, social networking, when Facebook and some of those, you know, first came about, that's kind of where we saw the beginning of this shared experience of the internet and the web. So it's pretty cool. It's kind of interesting because, like, you guys and even my kids, you know, they've always grown up having the internet is just part of their lives. So it's really to me, it's really what makes web development and web design kind of a really cool career or job, is being able to create those experiences for people to use and communicate with each other. So that's really where I kind of get the joy from that, is being part of developing those type of experiences for people. So. All right, enough rambling from me. So again, for this week, what you guys will do is take that first quiz. So it's just going to cover the information that we just went over. Pretty much all of the questions, you'll find the answers in like the PowerPoint that I just went through and the text there in the book. If you don't, is there, just real quick, and you can raise your hand or just communicate with the little yes or no on the participant list. Is there anybody that doesn't have the textbook yet? Okay, so there's a few of you. What I might try to do then, so you can take the quiz, I'll go ahead for this week and get a digital version of chapter 1 uploaded into Canvas. And that way you guys can have access to that. I'll try to get like a PDF version into Canvas so you can review that and take the chapter 1 until you get your textbook in. So I'll go ahead and do that. If you have any trouble with that, just let me know. Or if you're not able to access that, just shoot me an email. So we'll do that. And then again, just a reminder, Friday, I'll be on campus in room 163, TC 163. So if you want to stop by and meet face-to-face with masks on, of course, I'll be in TC 163, and I'd love to meet you in person. And if you got any questions or want to talk over anything, just feel free to stop by. There hasn't been a lot of people that have signed up yet, but you can use that sign-up form that I have in Canvas to do that. Or if you just want to stop by for this week, that's cool too. All right. Okay. Any last questions before we head out? I think we're about the end of our time here. No. Okay.
So we're not Zooming on Friday?
No, no Zoom on Friday. We'll only be doing Zooms on Mondays and Wednesdays.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, everybody have a great rest of your week. And if I don't see you on Friday, we'll see you on Monday. All right. Bye.
Bye.